Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of my Android Facebook API tutorial series, where here I'm going to be showing you how to display your friends in your friends list into a recycler view using Android and the Facebook API. So here's a demonstration of how this works. So I've got the application right here. You have your continue with Facebook button to log in, and once you log in, your friends will be displayed here and your profile picture and name up here. So then just press continue, and you can see here that I have my profile picture, my name, and it just says my friends, and here I'm Karen Neighborhood's friends, and then these are just a recycler view of all my friends that are on my friends list. And you might be wondering why all the profile pictures are not shown, and this is because to do this with your actual friends on Facebook, you would have to get a permission from each of them to be able to use their profile picture and then in your application. And so the way around this is to use test users from the Facebook for developers. So I'll be going over how to do that here, but here's just a quick overview of what I did. So you can see here for test users under roles, I just created all these accounts and then I changed their permissions so that they are included in the friends list of the user Karen Neighborhood here. And then also I want to show you how after you have all these displayed, you can click log out. After you've logged out, you go back here and then you can do the login process again. So click continue and everything is displayed again. So this is what we'll be building. Before I get deeper into this video, I just want to let you know that I will be glimpsing over stuff such as logging in with Facebook. I'm going to assume that you've watched the previous 2 videos on how to set up logging in. So for example, the login button and all that will already be implemented and my app will already be ready to go with Facebook for developers. But so to start this program, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create the layout files and add everything to them. So you can see on the first page we have, or this all occurs in one activity. What I'm doing is I'm just changing the views from visible to invisible and things like that. But so first you can see in the login page you have login to see your friends, which will be a text view, and then we have the Facebook button used to log in. So I'm just going to go to the layout activity file here, and I'm going to add in the Facebook button first. Just like this, com.facebook.widget.login button, and I'm going to do wrap content for both the layout height and width. And now because I'm using constraint layout, you can see that I have to add constraints. So I'm going to go to design here. I'm just going to move it to, I believe it was around here, and just add the constraints, just like this. I'm also going to show the UI components just to give you a better view of the phone. And so the next thing now is we have login to see your friends here. So let's just add a text view in the middle. I'll give it the ID, TV, login, and then I'm going to change the styling. So I believe it was text size and color. And so I'm also going to change the text to login to see your friends, just like this. And I'm going to change the text color to this one here. And then I'm going to change the text size to, I think maybe, it's a 50 dp. Yep. And then I just needed to make everything in the center. Just change the alignment right here to center, just like that. So we've made this here, and now next, let's implement the next part. So you can see after we've logged in, you can see now this has disappeared, the button is still here, and then we have a recycler view. So we have an image view, a text view, and a recycler view. So let me just add those real quick. And so to go more in depth on recycler view, you should watch my video. I'll post it in the description about how to add a recycler view in different ways if this doesn't show up for you, and also just a big overview of how RecyclerView actually works. But for now, I'm just going to download it here. Let the Gradle sync. And now I can just implement the RecyclerView just like this. So I'm going to add it to the middle. And now I'm going to change the dimensions of the RecyclerView. I'm going to change its width to match parent. I'm going to do the same thing with the height, match parent. And now we need space up here for the image view and the text view. So, or first let me give this an ID. I'll do it RV for recycler view, friend list, just like this. And now let me add let's do 100 right here. And then down here, just to go over the button, maybe 40. Let me just lower the button a bit. Let's do 10, 5. And now I think we have enough room. So we've got our text view behind here, and now we need the image view. So let me add an image view up here. Just do a default avatar right now. I'll call this IV profile pic. We change this to 5. And let's change the dimensions to, let's say, 300 pixels by 300 pixels. Let's make the RecyclerView give it a little more room then. Let's say change this to 150, just like that. And now let's add in our text view, which will be our name. Let's just add it right here. Call this TV my name. And then we need to add a top or a bottom constraint. Let's do a top, and let's do 5 again. Okay, so this is the general layout. You can see we have the recycler view, which is right here, and then the login, of course, has disappeared, and then we have the image view and the name here, and then the button. This will change to log out once we've logged in. So now we've created our recycler view, but what we need to do is now we need to create each of these items to populate the recycler view. And you can see in the item what we have is we have an image view and a text view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Resources, Layout, right click on it, and do New Layout Resource File. Let's just name it RV Item for recycler view item. And so now you can see we have an image view. So let's add an image view just like this. Just do default avatar. Need to add the constraints, so add a top one, bottom one. Let's do 30 for both. And now we need a text view. Let's just add this over here. Then add a top and to the side as well. And so each of our items, we don't want them to span the whole size of the screen. We want them to basically wrap the content like they do in this recycler view. So we have to change the height of this right here. So let's change the height to, let's just do wrap content. So let's wrap the content, and then let's add a little bit of padding. So if you go down here, we can add padding to just the bottom right here underneath the image view. So I can click right here on padding. Padding top left and bottom. Let's do bottom, and let's just do 10 dp. Just like that. Great, so now we have our image view, and then let's call this IV friend pick. And then let's call this TV friend name. Cool, so now we've got our layout set up and we've got our RecyclerView item. So now we can start programming. So let's go back to the main activity right here. So now I'm just going to declare each of these individual components here. So we have a login button, RecyclerView, text view, image view. So I'll do all that real quick. So first we'll do the image view for the profile picture. Then we'll do the text view for the profile for your profile's name. Then we'll do the Facebook login button. Then we'll do the text view that displays whether you're logged in or not. And then we'll do the recycler view. So to match it up, we have our image view for your profile picture here. We have our text view for your name here. We have the recycler view for this. We have the login button here. And then we have the text view here for login to see your friends. And so then we'd log them by their IDs, just like this. And I believe I forgot to add a login button ID. So what you would do is just go over here and click on this. And I called it button FB login. And then I synced it up right here for the Facebook login button. And so the first thing we need to do now is we need to make it so that our image view and our text view that show our name are invisible when the program starts. So when you've logged in, you have the image view and the text view up here. And you can see that they're not visible currently because this is all occurring on one activity. So what we should do is we should do text view my name dot set visibility to view dot invisible, and then image view my profile picture and set that visibility also to invisible. And so if you can remember from our previous login video, every time that you click the login button, it starts a new activity which returns the result to the Onactivityresult method. And so this activity is the one that we declared, or that was declared in our manifest file. So you can see here we have Facebook activity. And so what we need to do is we need a callback manager to manage the callbacks into the Facebook SDK from an activities on activity result method. And so we do that using the callback manager class from Facebook. And the way to create one is you do callback manager equals callback manager dot factory dot create, just like this. Then what we need to do is with our login button, we need to actually set the permissions. So when we've logged in, the permission that we want in this case is we want to get the permissions of our user friends. So the person who's logged in, we want to be able to access their friends. Once again, if you can remember, you can find these permissions here on Facebook for Developers. So under this URL right here, -permissions reference, and you can search for user friends, just like this. You can see it allows your app to get a list of the person's friends using that app, which is what we want to get. And now we want to use the callback manager we made to handle the results of our login attempts. So what you do for this is you would do login button dot register callback, and it takes first argument is a callback manager, which is our callback manager that we made up there, and then we need a new Facebook for login result. So the Facebook callback is the callback that will be called on login completion, and basically our callback manager here will encapsulate this callback. And so if the user has logged in successfully, so remember this is if the login was canceled, this is if an error occurred, and this is if it was successful. If it was successful, we want to make our text view of our name and our profile picture to visible, because that means the user has successfully logged in. So then we would just do text view my name dot set visibility to visible, and then we would do image view dot set visibility to visible. However, what we also want to do is we have our text view here that because we've logged in, we want to make that invisible. So then we would do, I believe it is text view login right here. We would do text view login dot set visibility to invisible. So when the user is successfully logged in, basically the correct widgets will be shown. Now what we want to do is we want to implement the Onactivityresult method. And if you can recall, that method is always called whenever you return from another activity. So say you have an app that takes a picture. When you take that picture, you can return that as a result, and this will all be handled in this method. So the way to implement it is you can do Control-O, which shows you the methods you can override. Then you can search for Onactivityresult right here. Just press enter, and now it's implemented down here. What we want to do, however, is we want to pass the arguments from this method to our callback manager, because then our callback manager passes these login results to the login manager through this callback manager. So what we do is callback manager, or what I would have to do is actually I define this, the scope of this to be local. What I should do is I should make it global so I can access it within this method. So I will do callback manager, just like this. And now if we go back down here and we do callback manager, you can see we can access it. And then we do Onactivityresult, and we pass the request code, result code, and data. So now after we've done this, we have basically made it so we can sign in, but we haven't done anything with this because we're not accessing the Graph API. But what we can start doing now is we can start building our recycler view. And so to do that, what I should do is go over here, go to where your Java files are, go to new, and then Java class. And I'm just going to call it my adapter. And so to create a recycler view, something you need is an adapter, which basically an adapter is the brains behind the whole thing. You can say it basically adapts an individual item to the main layout. So these items we made here, it'll basically be responsible for adapting those to this recycler view here. But so before we do any of this, we need to make a static inner class called myViewholder. So once again, you can learn more about this if you watch my RecyclerView class, but I'm just going to go over this a little quickly now. But so you do public static class, let's call it myViewholder. And to create that, we extend the class RecyclerView.viewholder. And then you can see we have to override the default constructor. And so we do it like this. And so this view holder is basically responsible for just displaying a single item, and that's this item here. And so we have an image view and a text view. So what we should do is we should declare those up here. So we do image view, just call it image view, and text view, just call it text view. And now this view will be this inflated view here from the XML file, so we can obtain our IDs from it. So what we should do is image view equals find, or item view dot find view by ID, r.id.iv, and this is your friend picture. So if you can remember in here, this will be the list of our friends from our friends list. And then we do the same, we do text view equals item view dot find view by ID, r.id.tv, friend name. So now that we've got our view holder up and running, the next thing we need to do is we need to actually make this an adapter. And so what we do that is you extend the class RecyclerView.adapter, and you pass it the type of the view holder you declared here, which is my view holder. And then you'll see we have an error because we need to implement the abstract methods. So let's just implement these three methods here. So the first method here, Oncreateviewholder, basically will return the view holder that we created down here, so my view holder. And you can see when we're creating a view holder, what we need to pass is the item view. So we will be passing it this here. And so the main purpose of this method here is basically to return the view holder, and then, but it'll also inflate this layout XML file so that we can pass it to our view holder. So what we want to do is first create an item or an object called a view, just call it view. And to turn our XML file into a view, we want to use the layout inflator class, and we need to get it. So we use layoutinflator.from parent, and then we get the context from our parent view group. And then what we do is we want to inflate, and what we want to inflate is our r.layout RV_item because we want to inflate this here into a view object. And then next we pass our view group, which is parent, and false, so we don't attach it to the root. Then we just say return new my view holder, and it takes an argument. You can see a view, and we pass the view just like this. So the next method we are going to be working on now is Onbindviewholder here. And so in a RecyclerView, binding is basically the process of preparing a child view to display data corresponding to a position within the adapter. So using this argument position right here. So here what we're going to be doing is we're going to set the view's contents based on the position of the list. But however, before we do that, what we want to do is we want to make a class called Facebook Friend, which will be used to basically populate the view holder. So I'm going to go over here to project. Under this package right here, I'm going to right click, new, Java class. I'll just call it FB Friend, just like this. And so we're going to be using this basically custom object to populate this view here. And so you can see we have an image view and we have a text view. And so what we're going to name these fields is we're going to get the profile picture by an ID. So we're going to have the field private string ID. Then we're going to have private string name. And then we'll do a constructor and getters. So Alt Enter constructor. Select both of them. OK. Then Alt Insert and getter. Select both of them. And press OK. Now let's go back to our adapter class here and create an array list of the new object that we just created. So new object of FBFriend. And that's the way we can populate the RecyclerView with each item in this list array. So I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a field private array list. And the type is FBFriend. We'll call it Facebook or FBFriends. Now we can create a constructor. So whenever we create this adapter, we can pass this array list of these users to it so we can populate the view holder. And so now to actually display the image, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the library Picasso. So go into your web browser, type in Picasso, Image Maker, Android. You can see here the first link for GitHub. Go down to the implementation. You can see here insert latest version, but it is available on GitHub. And scroll down. Right here, implementation. Copy this. Go back to Android. Go to your Gradle scripts. Open your module app Gradle file and paste in the implementation right here. And then sync. Now after you've downloaded Picasso, it might not show up at first, so what you should do is go over here to build and then rebuild project. Now go back to your myAdapter class, and now we're going to start populating the view holder. So we can do picasso.get.load, and the URI is this right here. So if you want to obtain a Facebook profile picture, you use this URI, which basically is this URI here, and then Facebook ID will be your Facebook ID, or the ID of the person whose profile picture you want to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do it like this. And then what we're going to want to add in here is going to be from our array list, so fbfriends.get, the index will be position, and what we want to get is their ID, like this. And then what we want to load it into is our image view. So that will be coming from my view holder here. So we will do holder.imageView. And the next thing we want to display, so we've displayed the profile picture. Now I want to display that name. So just go back to my adapter again. And now we are going to do holder.textView and .setText. And we can do fbfriends.get the position. And then this time get their name. So that functionality is coming from this right here, this class that we just made. Now the next method we're going to be working on is getItemCount, which is basically how many items we have to display in our RecyclerView. And so we're using this array list right here to populate it. So what we want to do is we want to return the size of our array list, or fbfriends.size. And now the last thing we want to do is we want to add a method here that clears the RecyclerView when the user is logged out. So what we can do is we can name it public void clear, And what we want to do, when the user is logged out, first we want to clear the array list. So the array list is fbFriends, and we'll do that .clear. And then we just want to notify the adapter that the data set has changed for the RecyclerView when it loads the view next. And so we can do that, and then when the user is logged out, we will actually call this method. So now we've got the functionality of our adapter done, and what we need to do next is, if you remember, when we want to populate this with Facebook friends, if we actually wanted to do this with our legitimate friends on Facebook, we'd have to gain everyone's permission. And so the way around this is to use test users. And so what we do is you just go over to Facebook for developers and log in, and then over here under roles, you can click on test users. And so you can see I've already created a few test users here, and the way to do this is you would just go up here to add, and the number of test users you want to create. I'll just add some more, but I'm just going to say 4. You want to authorize them for this app so they can log in and things like that. And the login permissions here, what we want to get is we want to be able to get their user friends. And so what we do with that is then we just click create test users. And so you can see now we've had some new users added up here. And what we're going to want to do is, what I did is I would just go to change name or password for this test user, and I would change their name. So let's say I want to change the name of this first one. I will go here and I'll just change the name to say Michael Smith, just like this, and then fill in the password and then save. And so you can see now we have this user updated here, but something you need to do is you will be logging in as one of these test users into this application, and then you will add the other users in this to their friends list so they can be displayed. So for example, if you can remember from my example, I'm signing in as Karen Neighborhood here. So basically I just need to remember the password for her in here, and then I can log in with her. And what I need to do is go to the user that you want to log in as, and go to manage this test user's friends. And so you can see all the friends listed here. These are the ones that will be showing up. And so if I added, say for example, I just added 4 more users, one of them is Michael Smith. If I do that, then they'll be added here as well. So now we've created some test users, and we've also created a test user that we're going to sign in as, and we've changed their permissions right here and managed this user's friends so we can have those displayed within our application. And so now what we want to do is we want to go back to Android Studio, and we want to retrieve these friends, and this is done through the Graph API. So what you should do is go back to your main activity here. When you're in the OnActivityResult method down here, let me add some spaces, and then what we are going to do is we're going to be creating something called a myNewFriends request. And what this will basically return is an array list of friends, or friends that are in our friends list. And when this request is completed, we want to make an array list of Facebook friends and pass this to our adapter. And so what we're going to do this is we will do graph request like this. Graph request friends equals graph request dot new my friends request. And you can see it takes an access token, which we can retrieve by access token dot get current access token, and then new graph Json Array callback. And so when this request has been completed, what we want to do will be in here. And so what we can do is we can log, just demo, we can lob our array objects like this to string so we can see what the contents are like. And so what I'm going to do is we've made our request, but first let me execute it. So I would do graph request friends dot execute async, just like this. And now let me run our application. So this is what it looks like so far. Let me pull up the logcat down here. But so if I continue to log in with Facebook, click continue because I've already logged in. And you can see we have our text view and everything not filled in yet. But if we go to demo within here, you can see what we have is a list of friends. So you can see we have Michael Bublé, which is the name and the ID, Cristiano Ronaldo, name and ID, and this is just a list of all the friends of the user I signed in with, which is Karen Neighborhood. And then if I show you over here, Karen Neighborhood right here, if I go to manage this test user's friends, you can see these are all the names that show up in log here. So it's returned an array list of each of these users containing their name and their ID. Something you should also note is that in JSON, basically an object is always between these curly brackets here. So you can see this is one object here. And then an array is always an array of objects is contained in these brackets right here. So you can see we have one bracket here, and then at the very end we have another one, closing the array list of objects. So now let's create our array list that we actually want to populate. So, and this is what we're going to be passing to the adapter. So we'll do array list of fbFriend, call it fbFriends, equals new array list. So now what we want to do is we want to loop through this JSON array right here. So what we can do is we can do for int I equals 0 up until I is less than the size of objects.size or objects.length, I++. And so for each of these iterations, what we want to do is we want to retrieve one of these objects. And so what we can do is we can do JSON object, just call object, and set it equal to objects.getJSON object. And what we want to do is we want to get it from each iteration, so just I right here. And then of course we have to surround this with a try catch. And so after we've gotten that object, what we want to do is you want to get the fields from it. So what we will do is we will do facebookfriends.add a new FB friend. And what we are going to be adding is, you can see we have name and ID. So for the ID, we could do object.getString, and the field is ID. And then for the name, we could do object.getString by name. So now we're going to be adding to our array list for each of these JSON objects in here. And so now what I want to start doing is we want to start making our recycler view with our code. So first what we should do is we should declare these variables globally. So you can see we already have a recycler view, but what we also need is a my adapter from right over here. So my adapter, and then what we also need is we need a layout manager. Just call it layout manager. And so we need a layout manager basically because the adapter shows us how to fills the recycler view, but we don't know in what layout we want them. So the layout manager will say we want the items on top of each other, we want them in a grid and stuff like that. And so now let's set these within this graph API request. So the for loop ends right here. So after the for loop, what we're going to do is we're going to do recycler, or first let's just do our layout manager equals new. Let's do a linear layout manager because we want everything on top of each other. And then needs the context, we can do main activity.this. And now we can do our recycler view like this, and we can set our layout manager to our layout manager. Next, let's create our adapter. And so the reason we're doing this down here, you will see in a second, is because we're going to do my adapter equals new my adapter. And if you remember, we need to pass the data, which is an array list, which is what we populated right here. So then we can pass FB friends when it's full outside of this for loop. And then the next thing, we just want to do our recycler view, and we want to set our adapter to my adapter, just like this. So the next thing we want to do now is we've created a graph, we've contacted the graph API to get our friends list, and now what we want to do is we want to do another graph request, and this will be to get our profile picture and our name, and we're going to do that equals graph request dot new me request. So once again, it takes an access token, so we'll do access get current access token, and then new graph JSON callback, just like this. So end this with a semicolon. And so once this has been completed, this is the object that will hold everything that we want. And so by default, we get name and ID. So we can just do string name equals object.getString, which will be name. And then we can do string ID equals object.getString, which will be ID. So it'll be like this down here, name and ID, but just containing our information. So then surround this with a try catch. Take this one and also put it in the try catch because they're throwing the same exception. Get rid of the space. And so now what we want to do is we want to actually set the text view here and the image view here. And so what we can do is we can just do text view my name dot set text to name. Then we can do Picasso dot get. And then what we want to do is we want to load the URI. And so it's the same URI as last time. So I can go over here to my adapter. Let me just copy this right here. Paste it in. And then instead of all this, we will just do ID, because this is what we retrieved over here from the JSON object. And then we want to load, or into, we want to load, and the target will be image view my pic, so my profile picture. And so now we just need to execute this request. So we can do graph request.execute async. So now we've done a new me request so we can get our profile information. And we've done a new my friends request so we can get our friends list. And so we're almost done now, but what we need to do is we need to track our access token to determine if the user is still logged in or if they have logged out. And so what we can do this through is something called the access token tracker. So if you can remember from the previous video, what we did is we did access token tracker down here, right here, and then we would set that equal to, or call access token tracker equals new access token tracker. And you can see it's an anonymous inner class, and so we can just close this off here. And then what we want to do is we want to check if our current access token is null, because if we know this is null, then it means the user is logged out. And so if the user is logged out, what we want to do is we want to clear our adapter. Next we need to do is we need to set the text view login. We need to set that visibility to visible because it means the user is logged out, and so we want to prompt them with login to see your friends. And then we want to do text view my name. We want to set that visibility to invisible, and we want to do the same with the image view of my profile pic. We want to set that to invisible as well because the user is logged out, so we shouldn't be able to see it anymore. And then the final thing we want to do is we want to do the login manager, which is basically in charge of logging the user in and out and holding the access token. We want to get the instance of it, which is basically a singleton class, and then we want to log them out. And so this method will be called whenever the access token changes, and when the user logs out, that is when the access token will change to null. And now the final thing that we want to do is we want to go to onDestroy. And so we want to override the onDestroy method by clicking Control-O, search for onDestroy, and then keep the super. And what we want to do is we want to do access token, or what I should do is I should actually declare this globally. So let me copy this, paste it up here, and then down here, get rid of this access token tracker, and then in the destroy method is always recommended to stop tracking your access token. So I'm going to do access token dot stop tracking. And so this is our completed application. So the only thing we need to do now is just run it up here. So now that our application is loaded, we can just click continue with Facebook to sign in. And then once this screen loads here, what we want to do is we want to sign in with the test user that we gave permission to use their user friends, and also the one that we actually managed and added friends to. And so for me, you can see that it is the name here, Karen Neighborhood. So if I go to edit, you can see manage this test user's friends. You can see these are all the friends she has, whereas no other character or person that I made has those. So if I did manage this test user's friends, their only friend is Karen Neighborhood. And so if I want to log in, I would just have to add this email here and then type in the password that I made right here. So let me just type in the password real quick, and then you can click login. You can see that I've previously logged in, so I know what permissions I'm going to be using, and just click continue. And then you can see here's my profile picture, my name, and here are all the friends that are on my friends list. So if I click over here, and once again to manage this test user's friends, you can see the list will correspond over here. So you have Cristiano Ronaldo, George Lopez, and then afterwards, when we just log out, you can see it says once again, log in to see your friends. So this is the video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.